Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Man Asleep, which I realize now, and it's too late to change, but it should be Man Awake because I'm not asleep, right? I'm. That's the whole point. I can't sleep. It's fine. I think if my name on here was Man Awake, I actually think that would sound like one of those self-help channels that just sort of like gets 125 billion views a day from just kind of playing looped playlists of Alan Watts talking. If you don't know Alan Watts, he has a lot of good things to say. They're mostly based on Jung, but the most important thing he has to say is stuff in a very delectable British accent. I have this rotten Yankee accent to give to all of you today, but perhaps I do have like a motivational turn in me because as I sat here and, I can't stay away from Across 1,000 Dead Worlds. I just love the idea of dead worlds. Some people get excited about alien civilizations, first contact, not me. I would love it if we were last contact. We just kept finding all these planets with buildings and stuff, and they're all gone. And what do I find most exciting about it? The recipes. Because I bet there's some planet that eats blue food for dinner, and it's so delicious that it makes you cry. And even Wolfgang Puck transitions all of his airport menus into blue-only food menus. Anyways, I think I'm playing the game wrong, but as I was playing, I started thinking about why I do this, why I love this, why in the middle of the night when I can't sleep, rather than putting a television on. I can't say I always win the battle. Let me adjust my mic here. Can't say I always win the battle against video games. I am playing Rogue Trader CRPG right now, which is a fantastic game that is so buggy, which is the norm now because video games are released about 2 years earlier than they should be. It's our fault. I don't want to get into it. What I want to talk about is this thought that kept occurring to me to the point that I was like, maybe I should turn this on and we'll see if I want to upload this. But I started thinking about why I choose to do this, why I choose to retreat inside myself and explore, hopefully not dead worlds, but the many worlds inside of me. It makes me feel proud of myself that I do that. I think for some people who are not familiar with tabletop role-playing, and specifically solo tabletop role-playing, they might look at this hobby as the chore of someone who is terminally lonely. And that certainly might be true. This YouTube free music really knows how to... I put mood is chill, jazz, dark, and it sounds like they're giving me a bunch that sound like a New Orleans All Saints Day parade. No hate, New Orleans is great. Yeah, so as I'm doing this, I'm like, I feel good about this. I feel very happy about this because there was a time in my life where I would have not been able to do this. And I don't know if this will resonate with anybody. Perhaps it was the opposite story or something, but when I was younger, the idea of having a million things to do outside of my home and instead choosing to stay here barricaded by a bunch of dice and Mr. Bean. Why is it that I choose to do this? And moreover, why do I enjoy it? I actually don't know if that gets talked about enough, or the reasons that are often given for why people solo roleplay are these weird sort of corporate self-improvement things. Like, it helps me write, it helps me create my own adventures, it helps me to improve my ability to come up with new ideas on the spot. And those aren't wrong, and there's nothing bad about that. But I'm the kind of person that thinks about sort of the terminal cause. Like, yes, maybe I want to improve this skill, but what do I want to improve that skill for? And if it's to do XYZ, why do I want to do that thing? Why do I want to have that skill in the first place? And when I just can't figure it out, I use the fate mill. No, I'm just kidding. Well, actually, no, I'm not. April 12th, don't forget, ManAlone20. You still have time to use the code for everything on the website. You remember that? That's not the code. ManAlone20. TowerHouseCreative.com. Why do I want to do anything? I don't know. But here's what I do know. That, again, there was this time in my life where the idea of this right now on this night, on a Thursday, as embarrassing as it is to say, like Thursday as a night to go out and party is something that usually stops for most people when they're like 23. But for me, I don't know why I just did an ad for 23andMe. For me, I was not able to let that go, and it got quite bad. And up until about 7 years ago, my life had started to become one of those lives that when I was younger, I would look at people and say, how do you get there? And I don't want to do whatever the applicable stolen valor is for this, stolen misery. I certainly cannot claim, certainly there are other people in worse situations, people that were living on the street, people using intravenous drugs, stuff like that. That was never something I faced, but I was stuck. I was stuck in a place in which I could not be alone with myself. And the problem with fun, the problem with, being a person who loves to socialize and to be an extrovert and all that stuff. The problem with that is like when the getting's good, like when there's always people to hang out with, there's always things to do, and there's always people that like having you around, it can feel like you don't have a problem. It can feel like there's nothing wrong because truly nothing is wrong. And this is what would happen for most of my life is, if you were to come up to me and say, hey, I think you're developing, a drinking problem, an addiction, I would have said, I don't see how that can be, because if I have that, aren't I supposed to be crashing my car and getting thrown out of places and all this stuff, when in actuality, all that I saw was just, one party to the next every night, this literal dice roll of the fate mill, ManAlone20. Every night was this random question mark where anything can happen. Now, if you are a person that is no stranger to the booze, you know that usually it's a crit fail. Well, maybe not at first. At first, it's just maybe you roll a couple. You roll a couple critical successes, and that's what kind of keeps you in it. But after a while, on a long enough timeline, the returns diminish, and the wins get lower and lower, and by that time, though, your body is addicted. I'm not. The point of this video is not to educate anyone on addiction. It's to talk about the intersection of that with my solo role playing. And I don't know if I'll upload this, but the thing about solo role playing that for me is like the why of it is because it is one of the ways that I have learned to do something that is the most important skill that I've learned in my life. Another very beautiful, chill song. Okay. And that is to make friends with myself. I went through most of my life not being friends with myself. And again, when you're extroverted and when you have some charisma and you're not afraid to put yourself out there and meet new people, it's the problem is invisible because any of those moments where you feel sad or you feel left out or you feel lonely, you just quickly go and plug yourself into one of these social outlets, whether that's something like a romantic connection or a new friend or a new wild experience or a new risk or a new moment to really show everybody what you got. I fed off those things. I fed on them over and over and over again. And I couldn't bear being by myself, to the point that I remember I would, this is very embarrassing, but maybe this will connect with somebody. I would hurry up in the bathroom because I just hated being alone in the bathroom, to do something that was a required biological task. I would drink up until the point that I had to pass out at night because I didn't want to have that moment where I was alone with myself in my bed. And it's so interesting talking about this right now, because it's one of those things in life that when it's happening to you, it just feels like there's no escape from it. And maybe someone right now is feeling that way. You're watching this and maybe you're saying some of the same things I said. Maybe you're saying yeah, that's nice for you, but you don't understand my situation. I'll never get out of this situation. I'm totally trapped. I'm totally screwed. And dude, I hear you. I understand what that feeling is like. I understand what that pain is like. And so I'm not even going to try to make any appeal to anybody of, with these platitudes, there's light at the other side or anything. You already know that stuff. And really, this video is not about that. We're slowly figuring out what this video is about collaboratively. So this is a little bit vulnerable, and if you've been on YouTube or any social media, you know that being vulnerable in this world today almost never pays off, because even if you get some really nice comments, you'll have joy thieves move through and just sort of, a single comment that makes you feel like, wow. It's not necessarily that it makes me feel bad about me, but the thing that really gets to me about those things is it makes me feel bad about the world. It makes me feel bad that sincerity and vulnerability are things that make people want to hurt you for that, or to make fun of you for that, or to laugh at you, to call you cringe, to call you, say you're lying, or to say that get a life, or whatever it is. And you could say that all that stuff to me if you've had an issue with addiction or depression. Those kind of things are yeah, dude, you think you're saying anything worse than I've ever said about myself? And now that I'm on the other side of that, though, and I'm in this place where I feel like I'm really here and I'm really available and I'm really able to help people and I'm really able to share gifts, and I'm also able to take gifts, receive them, which is a really hard thing. And if you're a person that has a hard time receiving gifts, compliments, attention, stuff like that, maybe that makes sense to you. And I think the reason that it's hard for people to do that is because receiving that kind of praise, if you're a person that hates yourself, is you worry or you feel bad because you feel as though you've tricked these people into giving you that feedback. And this could manifest in a lot of different ways. Maybe you're somebody that gives feedback to other people, but you never want it to yourself. You lavish other people with praise and with help, but you don't ever think you deserve that. And for me, and perhaps this is for you, the reason for that was I was not friends with myself. I didn't want to hang around with myself. And so that's my why for this, for solo RPG playing, because it's an opportunity for me to hang around with myself. And I could tell you, you really want to be vulnerable here. But this actually feeds me. Just, if there is like one person watching this right now that struggles with this kind of stuff and they just need to know that other people understand, that's like worth it. But I remember this moment where, when you're in recovery, you get a really bad deal at first, right? People will be like, you got a lot of momentum. Everyone's really supporting you. You got that brief period where your body is like physiologically recovering from it. And then you get through all that and you're like, okay, now I can start living sober. And it's like, what do I get if I achieve sobriety? And it's like, oh, cool, you get like a token, and you're like, oh, that's cool. But I mean, like, what bonuses, what power ups do I get? And ultimately the answer is, oh, well, like, remember your kind of like stale, shitty life before you started drinking and stuff? You get to go back to that, and you're like, wow, that sucks. And I always compared it to buying when your refrigerator breaks, and you have this like brief moment of time that is super weird, where you're like shopping for something you've never shopped for before, and you're trying to make decisions about like what kind of refrigerator do you want, what kind of refrigerator matches who I am as a person, how is it going to fit in the milieu of this home, and all this silly stuff, these weird questions that you only ask 3 or 4 times in your life maybe. And then you get it, and you pay this money, and they ship it, and they install it, and you open it, and you're smiling, and then you realize 5 days ago I had a refrigerator, then it broke, then I put in a lot of effort, and I paid a lot of money, and I wasted a lot of time. But at the end of it, I just have a refrigerator again. Like, it's the same. Okay, maybe it's got like a little ice maker or something. Maybe it's got a little roomier. But like, ultimately, you get back to your baseline, right? And that to me is really what sobriety is, right? At first. But I want to tell about this moment where it's very rare, because, addiction, and a lot of things that we do in life, it's not just like chemicals and stuff. Addiction as a whole, though, it's about avoiding that moment where you're all alone, that moment, that center, that heart of the pain. And you're so afraid of that. You're so afraid of, if I get rid of every distraction and everything that numbs my feelings and everything, like, what's going to be left there? And I just was there, and there was nowhere to go. I couldn't run away to anything. And I even remember it was like a snowstorm, so I couldn't even literally run. I couldn't, there were times in it where I just like run around, around the city a little bit, because I had nothing else to do, and I had all this energy and I had to do something. I couldn't even do that. So I was just stuck. And I started crying because I was just like in what I call the suffer box. I had finally gotten in the suffer box, the opposite of this beautiful box from my girlfriend. I was in the suffer box. And in the midst of that, suddenly I realized that, and it was so obviously it was a really ugly cry, and I wasn't really aware of myself. But when I finally stopped, I noticed that this thumb right here was rubbing this hand, just like that. And I think it was the first time in my life where I said to myself, like, you're okay. You're okay. I'm sorry. You don't deserve this. I like you. I love you. You're a good person, And it was just so simple. And I remember that like the crying then changed. It was this like tenderness. And I realized that like this right here, we all want this. We all want another hand to get it. And I hope everyone, that wants that gets that. But ultimately we always have this, but it just takes an adventure that has a lot of ups and a lot more downs to realize that for some of us. And it was the first time that I had been a friend to myself. And once that happened, I was able to start investigating other ways in which I could be a friend to myself. I began to be less scared of spending time with myself, of hanging out with myself. And, this was a progression for years, and I found out so many wonderful things about myself and all these things and all these people that you're mad at when you kind of hit that rock bottom and you say, all these people, you blame them. How could they do this? How could they think this about me? Why'd they say this about me? Suddenly, and maybe you don't say it, but suddenly you feel very grateful to them one day where you're like, man, if I hadn't had those pressures, and maybe those people didn't have my best interest in mind, but just from I'm just so glad that happened, because if that hadn't happened, I never would have met this guy. I never would have met this person. And when I play a game, especially like a really beautiful game, a game that is made with so much love like this, I just felt, I guess you could say I felt emotional, but I just felt very happy to be hanging out with myself and doing this. And it just seems sort of like on topic, this game of these traveling to these worlds and making these discoveries, and there's moments of peril and wonder. And I was just like, man, I never would have been able to travel here if I hadn't had, this friend to travel with. And so if I haven't already made this point 55 times, I think I have, I guess I'll just say it once more. Solo RPG playing is a way to get to know yourself, to get to learn about yourself. And this may be on the surface one of the least cool things possible to say, but it's a way to learn how cool you are. How much you like yourself. Because as I'm playing solo RPGs, and you can kind of see it sometimes on a video, I'll get so excited. And it's not because it's not like any sort of hubris or anything, but I'm literally impressed with myself of my ability to create these things out of nothing, I've never thought about these things, and they rise up through me. And sometimes I'm just like, God damn, this guy is incredible. Where have you been all my life? And it's like, dude, I'm right here. And so if you ever need, I don't know if anyone needed that. I suppose it doesn't matter. But I guess I want people to know that this is not just a diversion. It's not just it's not like a crossword. Well, I don't want to dump on the crossword puzzle people, but it's not like a Sudoku or whatever, where it's something to burn off time or something to get through the small hours or whatever. To me, it is a rare and wonderful opportunity to have quality time with myself, which I never valued, and I am woefully behind. And if you're someone who's introverted, or you learned how to do this earlier in your life, I think I'm jealous, not really jealous. I'm very happy for you, but it's just not how it went for me. I was never able to do that. And so I'm just so thankful to this, to give me this opportunity to really witness myself and to see how impressive it is that I can create these things and all by myself, And of course, without dipping too far into sort of some of these cliches, it's not until I was able to hang out with myself that I was able to then start to be present in a real way for other people, whether that is friendships, romantic relationships, my family. I never really felt, I'm a younger person in my family, and I never felt like I was a part of that unit. And it's because I just didn't feel, all of it is this inadequacy, this, this, you're not good enough, you're not really, and that can with your family, that can manifest in so many obnoxious and toxic ways, where you can sort of punish them, but you're really punishing yourself, or yelling at them, but you're really yelling or rebelling against yourself. And these are just parts of life. But if there's something in you that feels called towards this, and I know that there are many of you, and I think there's more, because we're in a place, I think, in the world right now where it's risky to put yourself out there, and there's a lot of algorithmic difficulties with things like that. And so some people are not able to connect with people in the way that they'd want, and because of that, they go home and they feel angry and they feel dejected, and I don't blame them. But there is another option, which is, like, you could look at this as time to tend your internal garden. And this is one of the best ways to do that. And I can't say that it saved my life, because I didn't find this until about like five years after that happened. And I don't want anyone to think that I'm like some, I still struggle with a lot of things, and I still question a lot of things, and I still feel insecure about a lot of things, but I do at least know one thing. And this goes for a lot. I finally know that I would hang out with me, which is the most PG version of, if you've ever seen Silence of the Lambs, Buffalo Bill, but it's not that. I don't think I ever knew that about myself before. I was so against myself, and to finally make friends with myself, it's a really wonderful, liberating feeling. And if you're younger too, especially in your 20s, my God, the 20s are so strange, and it's like you look back on it and you're like, what the hell happened? I thought I was gonna start like going in some direction, and I was spinning my wheels, and I have all these weird things. I remember my 20s, I have these memories of like hanging out with these people. I'm like, who the hell were those people? Like, why did I hang out with those people for that? But I also remember this feeling of this mad sadness, this feeling of not belonging, and not having any place that felt like I was home, or that I was supposed to be there, that I was building a life. And I think that sitting and doing this could feel counterproductive to that. But it's really, this is the work of building a life. I mean, yeah, right now it's not your own. You're building the Spitter's life. Between you and me, it looks like it's definitely modeled after the Shrike from Hyperion, one of the greatest series. But as you begin to learn how easy it is to create things from thin air, you start to suspect that perhaps it's just as easy to create those things in yourself. Why do I need to, if I read a page on Vimonic tech and I'm suddenly able to make Vimonic tech, can I make myself somebody that takes photographs on a Sunday just because I want to do that? Can I make myself somebody that has a higher forgiveness stat? Can I make myself someone who is over encumbered by a grudge and has to let that go? Why is it so easy here? It's so hard for you. You really start to question. You say, is that hard? Or does it just feel like it's hard? So yeah, not every session is going to repair your chakras or whatever, but I will tell you this. This is a good hobby to do, to bandage up the inside of yourself, especially if you're really beat up. I hope that all of you, and I think there are many of you who are probably watching this and being like, you're probably way on the other side of this thing, and you have, so many experiences, but there may be some of you too who are just feeling like you don't know what you're doing, or what's going to change, or what you're exactly working toward. And what I want to say is that is a problem that you cannot think yourself out of. You just have to move yourself out of it. And sometimes that movement is literal movement. You got to go be active. You got to go do something. You got to engage with people. And sometimes it just means that you got to move the inside of yourself to someplace different. And this is a way to do that. I can travel anywhere in the universe at any time that I want. And you just have to have a little bit of faith that you are creating something inside yourself. Even if it feels like you're wasting time, you're putting things off. That's what video games do. That's what the endless scroll does. This doesn't. Because if it did, you wouldn't get home and flip through TikTok or whatever. You would open up these books. But there's a reason you don't, because you have to be alone with yourself in that a little bit. And, you know, I mean, you got to take a look here. Like, I'm living the dream. And so is it really that bad being alone? If you get a Mr. Bean solar powered, or as I like to say, solo powered. Oh, I've been waiting forever to say that. It felt fine. But hey, we have now 45 more copies were purchased of the Bartleby. And so I think I get 60 or 70% of each of those. I can't wait to see what bobblehead we get. I can't wait to put out the vote for that. So I'm going to stop this here. I don't know if I'll upload this video, but what I do know is I got to play this damn game because I can't stop thinking about it. It's been running through my head all night.